Okay, so when you first open After Effects, most likely you're going to get some sort of pop-up window like this. You can either open an existing project, you can create a new project, or you can just hit X to dismiss it. So a brief overview of the working space within After Effects. We have three primary areas that we're going to be working in. The first one is the stage or the composition area. This is where we're going to see the footage and the objects that we are working with. This is where we're going to see the final export sort of render area. This right here is where our project files are going to live. So every Photoshop, Illustrator, PNG, JPEG, MOV, MP4, whatever you're going to bring in, it's going to live in a list over here. And then down here, this is our timeline. So obviously we're going to have different layers of different objects, and then this represents the time from the beginning of your timeline until the end of your timeline. So there's two ways you can create a new composition. You can think of compositions as pages in a document. So right now, this is a project file. A project file is sort of the housing that holds the project. And a composition, it's kind of like a symbol that we talked about in Adobe Animate, where it's just a small package that holds a timeline. A symbol isn't the file by itself, it's just its own timeline. Same thing with compositions. They're just sort of little packages of their own object or own timeline. The project file is sort of the whole shebang. So there's two different ways you can create a composition when opening. You can either just click on new composition and it will bring up this pop-up box, and you can put in your dimensions, your frame rate, the duration, how long you want it to be, background color, all that great stuff. You can create new composition from footage. So in this case, you would click on this and it takes you to the import window. And so whatever I import, it's going to match those settings. So for example, if I were to go and import, let's just click this movie right here, click on this, it's going to then automatically create a composition, which is this icon, that holds the movie right here. So this is the actual source file, but the composition is the holder for that. So you can have multiple comps or compositions within your project files, and you can even layer them on top of each other. So say, for example, I brought in another object. Let's just pull something random. Let's see. Why not? This jaunty fellow right here. Um, Again, right now he's not a comp because he's just an element. If I wanted, I could create a new composition. I'm just right clicking. And it's going to, again, ask me, well, how big do you want this new composition to be? Because every composition has a different scale to it. So it's not just the same timeline, a different timeline, I mean, but it's a different amount of area even. So here, let's just say 1920 by 1080, why not? 24, let's just make him 5 seconds, why not? Click OK, and then if I drag this guy in, he's now this jaunty done, he's a comp 1. So if I go into this comp, I could drag him over on top, and if I click into him, I see his sort of internal timeline. Unlike Flash, you're not going to see through and see anything around it, but you will be able to kind of go back and forth between the two down here. So think of comps as symbols, but they have their own dimensions as well as timelines, as well as frame rates. And you can have multiple compositions within one project file. And then again, when you're finished, you would just go to File, Save, and it's going to go, where do you want to save this? After Effects files tend to save in folders. So right here, this is my demo folder. It's going to have a folder for the elements and then just After Effects autosave. Most likely it will, when you first create it, it'll create its own sort of folder system. So that's a little bit about compositions and sort of working within After Effects as a primer.